Welcome to the Thursday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Thursday morning. How's it going, everybody? Hey, Astro, how's it going? It is Friday, Junior. The weekend is basically here. We have so much to go through. Yesterday, we kind of got a little bit sidetracked, so we've got a lot to cover and a lot to catch up on. So we should probably get some of that started, yeah? All right. Please keep speaking truth to power in the seriously hard of thinking. Well, one can only try, right? Kicking things off. The Florida Republican Party this week proposed a separate police unit dedicated to hunting voter fraud, part of new legislation that would further overhaul elections in the state. And of course, Governor Ron DeSantis is going to have a good excuse as to why we need to spend all this money solving a problem that doesn't quite exist. I'm sure. Hey Thandera, how's it going? The bill, Senate Bill 524, would create the Office of Election Crimes and Security within the Florida Department of State to vet claims of voter fraud or election irregularities before referring those claims to other law enforcement agencies for potential prosecution. Incidents of voter fraud are incredibly rare in the U.S., and past and present investigations by law enforcement agencies around the country have struggled to find more than a handful of cases amidst the millions of ballots cast in America, to the tune of tens of millions, hundreds, I think was the total count. Over 100 and something million people voted or something to that effect. In 2020, Texas Attorney General beefed up voter fraud investigations, logging 22,000 staff hours, twice as many hours as staff logged in 2018. The result was 16 Wow! Congratulations! Wow, a whole 16. Amazing. Good job. Which is half as many prosecutions as it resolved in 2018. I can't believe that you can implement laws and stuff with no evidence of needing it. Yep, well, take it up with the Republican Party. There were nearly 17 million registered voters in the state of Texas in 2020. Still, Florida is one of the 3 GOP-led states considered presidential battlegrounds where legislatures are mulling a new voter fraud police force. Good memes. I actually disagree with the framing that Florida is some type of battleground state. I don't think so. I actually don't think so. I think Florida is pretty much like Ruby Red. It is reliably conservative, like to the point where I don't think it's worth calling it a battleground state anymore, or swing state, whatever. I don't think it is anymore. Oh, right. But when it comes to something we do need, it's too expensive. Hey, folks. Healthcare? Nah, fam. No. Increasing budgets for education? Nope. Can't have that. What about making sure people don't go hungry in the state of Florida? How about overhauling our unemployment insurance? Nope. We need more police for things that don't even for problems that don't exist. That's where Governor DeSantis is focusing. And of course, this is just virtue signaling, because at the end of the day, it's going to be pretty much useless. It's a waste of $6 million. And it's just a virtue signal. Who's going to pay for it? That's a great question. Why? How come that question never comes up when it comes to making like such asinine waste of money, like a police force who's going to do basically, for all intents and purposes, nothing? That's a great question, Erk. Who's going to pay for it? Why does that never come up when it comes to things like this? But Florida is one of the 3 GOP states considered presidential battlegrounds where legislatures are mulling a new voter fraud police force as former President Trump continues to promote his lie that the 2020 election was stolen from him. That being said, Trump won Florida. Florida was also it's in the 2020 election was pretty smooth, actually. The Florida election, the actual process of like getting the ballots, counting the ballots, and then reporting the results was incredibly smooth. It was done, I believe, that same night or the day after. So, like, the idea that Florida has some, like, massive problems that need election overhaul or election integrity, or we somehow need a entire new police force dedicated to election fraud is just nonsense. I wonder if his mates are getting the money. Oh, I don't know. If you think about it, voter fraud and police is such a win for DeSantis. Republican voters love hearing about voter fraud, and they love police. True. We just literally saw a video yesterday where Ben Shapiro, in his world, thinks that the only thing that the government should be funding is police, police and military. I agree, Dandara. It's just a virtue signal. It's just a virtue signal. This serves absolutely no real purpose. Republican State Senator Travis Hudson, the Florida bill's sponsor, said during a committee hearing that the department would be staffed by 15 full-time investigators and 10 sworn law enforcement agents appointed by the governor from the Department of Law Enforcement, a statewide law enforcement agency that includes Capitol Police and other statewide operations. The agency reports to the governor and the Florida cabinet, which includes Attorney General and other state officials. The office would operate for Florida's voter fraud hotline and investigate reports made there, but the unit could also conduct independent investigations based on other information. What other information? Are you going to start spying on people? Florida Democrats, voting rights activists, advocates, and some election officials have criticized the bill and its proposals, including the new unit. I think we should be afraid of a political election police goon squad who can target specific communities, and they don't need any kind of cause to knock on doors or sit at a drop box and scare people. Said State Senator Tina Polsky, whose district includes part of Palm Beach. That's what it looks like to the outside world. The Senate bill is a scaled-back version of the $5.7 million operation Governor DeSantis proposed last year in his budget, which would have hired 52 staffers, including 20 law enforcement officers and 25 non-sworn investigators to hunt for voter fraud. It's unclear how much the Senate's version would cost taxpayers. Yeah, why are we asking that? Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to pay for it? Why are we wasting this money? Senate Republicans voted to advance this bill on Tuesday night. Why Tuesday night? Why not make a huge press conference about this very, very important election integrity bill? Why did you pass it in the middle of the night? Why did you pass it in the middle of the night? Is there like a problem or something? Do you think it might be unpopular? Do you think people might have questions about how this is going to be implemented? What's the purpose and why? Do we even need this? Jared Cardenas, thank you for the follow. So basically, this violates one of our core tenets for a healthy democracy, right? When you have the ability to pass bills in the middle of the night. So you wake up Wednesday morning yesterday. You wake up Wednesday morning and you realize that your representatives passed a bill that solves a problem that doesn't exist, waste several millions of dollars, good memes. I like your reporting. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Jared. Was it Florida or Texas that shut out a representative from the room where a bill was being signed? I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me. It could happen in either state, to be quite frank. Republican legislators in Arizona and Georgia states that President Joe Biden flipped blue in his path to defeating Trump in 2020 have also advocated for election crime units. Again, whenever these Republicans, because it is only Republicans who are advocating for these like bizarre election integrity, safety, whatever nonsense, whenever they talk about election integrity, the best thing that you can ask is, well, what's the evidence that what's the evidence that necessitates an entire election crime unit? Can you point to me where and why we need these things? The answer to that is obviously no. No, we don't need this. There's no legitimate evidence to suggest that there's some massive problem when it comes to election fraud or voter fraud or whatever. That's right, yeah. She did get arrested, you're correct. Earlier this year in Arizona, State Senator Randy Rogers proposed a $5 million Bureau of Elections within the office of the governor. Wait, why is it within the office of the governor? That's not very... Interesting, which would give investigators the ability to question any individual under oaths, issue subpoenas, conduct hearings, and issue public reports on their findings. Elections are currently overseen by the Secretary of State, a position held by Democrat Katie Hobbs, who is now running for governor. Good meme. Biden narrowly won Arizona, prompting allegations of widespread voter fraud from Trump and its allies, including many state Senate Republicans. Official checks, ample litigation, and an unorthodox review of millions of ballots commissioned by the state Senate Republicans failed to turn up proof of any of these allegations. True. Hey Dustin, how's it going? Oddly non-independent. Shocking. Rogers did not respond for a request for interview. Former Senator David Perdue, a Republican running for governor in Georgia against GOP incumbent Brian Kemp, proposed a police force to investigate election fraud in January. He said such a unit would operate under the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, a statewide law enforcement agency independent of the governor's office. Okay. Georgia House Speaker David Ralston, a Republican, has also said he'd support moving election crime units from the Secretary of State office to Georgia Bureau of Investigation. That bill has not yet been filed, said Caleb McKinnon, Ralston's Director of Communications. Biden won Georgia in 2020. These police units are being floated alongside other measures that would further tighten election laws in those states, continuing a trend in mostly Republican-led states after Trump's loss to Biden. In 2021, 19 states enacted new voting restrictions. In Florida, Senate Bill 524 would also add a new voter ID requirement for mail ballots, require officials to conduct more voter roll list maintenance. If created, it is possible that Florida's election fraud squad unit could have more personnel than some forces have investigating homicides. Cool. That's such a good meme. Think about that. If this goes through, this election crime unit would have more personnel than some forces have investigating homicides. Wait, how much did these new jobs pay? I have no idea. You could ask about evidence, but it wouldn't matter. The GOP have convinced their base fraud exists. Sadly, we're living in a post-truth world. I think you're right. I think there's some truth to that, for sure. And can I do it remotely? Do you live in Florida? If so, apply to... Oh my god. Hillsborough County Sheriff Office, which patrols and investigates crime for approximately 1 million residents near Tampa, has 18 officers investigating 49 homicides in 2020. Florida law enforcement officials are already charged with hunting fraud, have just found a handful of people who voted twice in 2020. I think the grand total was like 5. When asked why this bill was necessary, Hudson said, "What's wrong with being the most secure elections in the entire nation? Who's afraid of being too secure? I don't think I am. Right. These are the same people who are like all about freedom and who are like, well, security isn't that important as long as I'm free, right? And yet they invest in more money for more police, more state power. It's almost like when they talk about freedom, they mean the other thing. If the answer to the question is why, if the answer to the question of why this is necessary is what's wrong with this is like a pivot, right? This is a non-answer. Well, what's wrong with being the most secure elections in the entire nation? We already, there was nothing wrong with the way Florida conducted its elections. There's literally nothing wrong with the process itself. There was never any evidence to suggest that there was widespread shenanigans in the state of Florida. The most that happened was like 5 people who voted twice. And the overwhelming majority of those people, and mind you, 5, were all registered Republicans. The majority of those people were registered Republicans. So, I mean, I know I can't do it remotely because I do extreme vetting of cyber real good, but would they let me? No. They mean the opposite of what they say. Yeah. So if the answer to the question of necessity, like, why are you spending several millions of dollars solving a problem that doesn't seem to exist? And it's like, well, what's wrong with being more secure, No, that's a non-answer. In other words, they just, this is a BS answer. They just want more police, more control, and more centralized power. That's what they want. Mind you, the Florida proposal would report to the governor and the Florida cabinet. So it would basically report directly to the executive. Again, this trend of DeSantis centralizing power to his office, and especially when it comes to elections, should disturb people. The fact that this proposal for a election crime and security department or unit, first of all, is being created for a problem that doesn't exist. Second of all, it's wasting millions of dollars, which I thought we were supposed to, hey, who's going to pay for this? How are we? Is this even in our budget? Why are we paying for this? Who's paying for this? And third of all, the fact that this is designed to, this office is only going to report to effectively to the executive of the state, should disturb people. DeSantis is undeniably a authoritarian and just loves to centralize power more and more to his office. When they talk about freedom, what they really mean, what DeSantis really means, what the Republican Party in Florida really means, is freedom to do what they say. You have absolute freedom to do what I want you to do. That's the Republican Party. Yeah, too many people voted. Can't have that. Remember, when you hear people like Ron DeSantis talk about freedom, especially people like Ron DeSantis, when you hear people like Ron DeSantis get up there and do on their soapbox and talk about freedom and America and all this other weirdly, oddly nationalistic rhetoric, what they mean is they want freedom to tell you what to do, basically. Good meme. Speaking of freedom, Tucky, tell me, please, how is our democracy no longer functioning? Ah. Here's something that we've noticed. Well, I don't know if I could do a Tucker Carlson impression, but whatever. Here's something that we've noticed, and you may notice too. All of a sudden, pretty much every powerful person in the country is talking about something called democracy. Democracy, our sacred democracy. You can hear that word everywhere from The Atlantic to NPR to The New Yorker, NBC, and NBC News in between. Democracy defines the year of 2022 the way the Groovy defined 1968. All the cool kids are saying it. Wait, dude, this is like month 2 of 2022. The reason why democracy keeps coming out, first of all, is because, well, there's a certain contingent of a certain party that continues to just kind of want to throw it out the window. That's the problem. That's why it keeps coming up. Liz Cheney has decided her life's mission is now to defend democracy. Jim Acosta has a new CNN show in which he uses the word democracy the same way some people use prepositions in every sentence. Okay, let's just skip some of this. Every left of center midwit, so anybody who's any remotely left of center people are midwits. Good. Okay, thank you, Tucker. Well, let's see. Another way to describe democracy is popular representation. It's a synonym. Well, hold on. No. No. Kind of. I wouldn't say that that's true. A synonym. When the government does what citizens want it to do, you have a democracy. More or less. And when it doesn't, you don't. That's... What? That's... Okay. You no longer have a free country that is ruled by the people. So what kind of system do we have? It's easy to know. You find out what citizens care about, and then you compare those concerns to what people who run the government say they care about. If you've got a functioning democracy, there should be a fairly precise overlap, kind of. In a democratic system, leaders try very hard to speak for the voters. That's the whole point of the government. True, but it's not really happening, is it? So let's apply to the test to the US. What do our leaders care about? We know the answer because they tell us constantly. Our leaders care about equity and climate change. Yeah. Well, they don't. They actually don't care about climate change. Climate change has been rising as a very, very top issue with people. It's starting to get right up there. They care about trans rights, police brutality, and the deadly insurrection on January 6th, mandatory vaccinations, H-1B1 visas for more, Jesus Christ, Indian tech workers, and above all, the moment defending our closest ally, Ukraine, from Russian aggression. And of course, they care about third-wave academic feminism. What? The most famous Democrat in Congress gave us an impromptu tutorial on Instagram about the connection between cosmetics and patriarchy. What? Is he okay? He's jumping between things that have nothing to do with each other. Give that lady an MSNBC show. Sorry. Oh, yeah, okay. Anyways, if you work in the media or have multiple college degrees, chances are you're pretty good at making it all about you. I know, Tucker. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? What does the rest of America care about? Again, we don't have to guess about that. We've got a huge public opinion on that subject. At the top of the list, you'll see government incompetence, the economy, cost of living, and immigration. I don't know about immigration. I think that there is some truth to the fact that people are concerned about the economy, cost of living, and government incompetence. I think he just shoehorned that one in for, convenience. It is completely different from the list Joe Biden might have made. Equity, climate change, and transgenderism, mandatory vaccination. Transgenderism, mandatory vaccination. Wait, what? What? Climate change is at the top of the list. Just so you know, like there's like enough polling to suggest that people actually do care. Ukraine, yeah, that kind of made the headlines. Yeah. Those trends seem to be pretty unimportant to most Americans. Most of these issues are at the very bottom of the list. But how can that be? If global climate is the most imminent existential crisis of our time, why don't voters seem concerned about it? Gee, I don't know, Tucker. People like you who continue to push propaganda. And I also don't really buy the framing that people aren't necessarily unconcerned, right? We don't know, but they're definitely not concerned about it. I wouldn't say that either. I think that's not true. Instead, Americans are very worried about inflation and crime. Inflation maybe, crime maybe? I don't know about that one. I'm gonna have to check the stats on that because Tucker lies about everything. As it happens, this tells you everything those two topics that the White House has dismissed recently as irrelevant and dumb. The White House isn't all worried about inflation and crime. I wouldn't say that either. What? And first of all, wait. Okay. That doesn't sound like democracy. Here's the White House press secretary talking about some time off from her junior year in Oberlin to speak to her fellow undergrads about something called Pod Save America and about how rising crime rates are actually an invention of those racists at Fox News. What? Yeah, keep in mind that Tucker isn't news. Right now, just to give you a sense of CNN, Pentagon, as many as 8,500 troops on heightened alert. Okay, that's a true statement, is doing their own thing about the market. Then on Fox, wait, this doesn't have to do anything with rising crime rates. Wait, the clip that he played, it has nothing to do. Jen Psaki had absolutely no talk. What? Oh, I see. And then Fox News. And then on Fox, Jim Pirro is talking about soft on crime consequences, which again has nothing to do with crime rates. Okay. I can't believe people buy this. So what do your kids getting shot have to do with Ukraine? What? You're living in an alternate universe. That's a Jen Psaki position. You have to be delusional to think that crime was a problem in this country unless you happened to be in Georgetown last night around 6:45 p.m. If you were there, you might have seen a man shot to death. Yeah, I don't think anybody is, denying the fact that crime doesn't exist. What? That's not too far from where Jen Psaki lives, but Jen did acknowledge that happened. Of course, she didn't, noticing the collapse of our civilization. What? Oh, good memes, Tucker. Seattle area has a huge surge in gun deaths, but overall crime rates are rising. Yeah, I don't know. Like, maybe in some areas. I mean, you have to really look at it because, again, like Tucker just tends to lie about everything or tends to misrepresent a lot of statistics. So, and of course, here's the nice. You guys see how this starts, right? It starts talking about a very populist rhetoric, right? In some cases, he's talking about the economy, government incompetence, cost of living, and he shoehorns immigration there nicely. He then goes on to say about inflation, and then shoehorns crime. And then he ends, or then he starts to move into noticing the collapse of our civilization is racist. What are you talking about? Of course, that's a dog whistle. Even when it's happening just down the street. Look away, Jen Psaki. Look away. And whatever you do, don't go to Baltimore. Baltimore's a major American city. It's only 40 miles from where Jen Psaki lives. It's one of the worst places in Western Hemisphere. What? It's a little bit of Haiti in the mid-Atlantic. Oh my god. Really, Tucker? That's... Really? Really? Jesus Christ. If you look at overall crime statistics, from the FBI, crime is still dropping. Yeah, like I said, it's like you can't really trust anything that Tucker says because usually he misrepresents. Statistics. I think we should impeach Biden, but for something more realistic, like the drone strikes. To be fair, I think that for the most part, the drone strikes have gone down to like almost near zero. That being said, that does not excuse that horrible incident that happened, I think, earlier in December, or like it was a while ago, where they actually killed a man. It was like a he was a humanitarian worker or something like that. Violent crimes are markedly up since 2018. Hey, kitty, come here. They're pushing voter ID because of non-existent fraud. In the UK, you'll need a passport for a driving license, so if you got either, you can't vote. It's all about suppressing the vote among young and poor. No. It was a while ago, Tendera. It was a while ago. They killed like some humanitarian aid person. And they also killed children in a drone strike. Thank you for the follow, Nicodemus. I think that was horrifying. That might have warranted more investigation. Baltimore is a city run by people who fervently believe in the equity agenda, consider gender studies a legitimate academic discipline. In Baltimore, pretty much everyone in charge is black, yet it's a matter of religious faith that the main thing is holding the city back is white racism. What? Remember, this segment is about democracy. Overall crime is about the same. Okay. So even if we take that on face value, so again, what Tucker is saying is just a lie, or at best, misrepresentation. Okay, so anyways, he's continuing to talk about crimes. Okay. More crime. So nothing about democracy here. Cool. I thought I was going to have more to debunk here, but yeah, this is just this transcript because first of all, I can't stand him. And second of all, it could be DMCA'd. In a functioning democracy, people like Jensaki would have to tell us the answer. They would be required to live in Baltimore until they learn something, just as the people who wrecked Afghanistan probably ought to explain what they've learned before moving on to Ukraine and Russia, and that ought to be a requirement. Okay, but how is this a failure of our remember, the segment is our democracy is no longer functioning properly. How is a terrible press secretary saying proof or evidence that our democracy is no longer functioning? Like, he gives no evidence for that whatsoever. Instead, he shoehorns very nationalistic talking points, some of it which even is racist, and of course, things like the collapse of civilization, which what he really means is the collapse of Western civilization, which is a dog whistle. Of course. Like, this guy... Yeah, I much prefer the transcript, true. There are legitimate reasons why our democracy isn't functioning and hasn't been for quite some time. But Tucker fails to acknowledge any of that whatsoever. Instead, spends most of the segment talking about individual criminal incidents in like 2 cities. He spends the majority of this segment talking about individual incidents of crime in like a couple of cities, right? So Baltimore, and I think he mentioned another city. And of course, he's got to do the whole climate change denial because, of course, that's what his people pay him to make sure that that's shoehorned in there. And of course, you got to paint or you got to put AOC there so that you grab the clicks, you grab the attention. Right, and shoehorns AOC for no apparent... No, there's a reason for it. It's just like... It's just to just gin up emotional responses from his like boomer audience. This is ridiculous. Thanks, Tucker. I'm less smart for reading this. All right, let's turn our quick attention to our very good, very friendly, totally not far-right neo or proto-fash group known as the Proud Boys. The mouthpiece of a South Florida-based right-wing extremist group that calls themselves the Proud Boys is out of jail and back in South Florida in his hometown. In his first interview, since being released, Enrique Tarrio spoke exclusively to NBC6, saying that he regrets the actions that landed him in jail. Never, okay, so please keep in mind that the only reason that he's doing this is all PR, okay? This is all PR. This is all... Are you okay, Frank? Are you okay, buddy? Is there, like, something you want to talk about? Um, okay, I don't know what fake news means. If fake news to you means news that you don't like, then I hate to break it to you, buddy, but that's not what fake news means. Oh, so you are a liberal. I don't know what a liberal is. I don't know what a liberal is. Like a LeBron follower? A liberal? A liberal. Oh, and you know that for a fact? Hey, spread it forward. Thank you for the follow, Blush. Most people in this chat don't watch Fox News or MS. Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like, and that's what you got from this. He's got a point about MSM News being shields for companies. Yeah, to a degree. Yeah, that's true. They are major companies. So I guess you like socialism. How about you hang in here and you decide. Biden has taken out the leader of ISIS in Syria. I thought Daddy Trump destroyed the ISIS caliphate 100%. Didn't Trump just make a speech about how he destroyed the the ISIS caliphate? He's going to give a speech shortly. Oh man. Yikes. Anyways, back to our friends at the Proud Boys. Dario said if he wasn't arrested, he would have been at the Capitol that day and he would have stopped the Proud Boys from participating in any violence. No, he would have been right there leading them. Don't be fooled. This is a PR stunt. Don't be fooled. This is a PR stunt. Behind the scenes, these people are quite comfortable with engaging in violence. And clearly this dude shows proclivities for doing so. I don't believe him whatsoever. 1 week out of DC jail and fresh from his probation officer, NBC6 met up with Tario at his warehouse where he makes t-shirts, hats, and everything else sold on his website. It's never really been my full job. My full-time job is managing PR for a bunch of drunks known as the Proud Boys. No, you see, this is the rhetoric that he uses to downplay the dangers of the Proud Boys. They're not a bunch of drunks, okay? They're not a bunch of drunks. Just because they have Proud Boys in their name doesn't mean that they're any less dangerous. This is a very carefully, because this guy is very good at PR. This guy is very good at PR. His job is to make sure that the Proud Boys are put in as much good of a light as possible, and to divert any attention away from just how dangerous these people are. Socialism is when every business is a co-op, basically, right? No. Co-ops can exist within this system. However, it is socialistic in nature to have co-op businesses. Yes, of course, the workers owning the business is socialistic in nature. That doesn't mean you achieved socialism. Worker co-ops can exist right now. The 37-year-old Cuban American said he's struggling to pay bills. Aww. Dude, you came in here last time making up some nonsense. If you can't even define what you're against, then why are you against it? If you can't define what you stand for, then why do you stand for it? This is what I never understood. People just blindly say oh yeah, capitalism is the best and capitalism is so awesome, and yet they can't even explain to me basic economic terms as to how markets work. They can't explain to me basic terminology. So then why do you stand it? How do you know that this is a system that you like if you can't even explain to me the basics? My friend lives in Venezuela. Okay, great. Congratulations. You still have yet to explain to any of us what socialism means. If you can't explain to me what socialism means, then how do you know you're against it? If you can't explain to me how capitalism works, then how do you know you're for it? This is what I never understood. People just blindly believe in whatever fits their whatever preconceived notion and just go with it. No, that's not a definition of socialism. Try again. I believe in you, buddy. I believe in you, buddy. What is the definition of socialism? No, that's it. Calling me ignorant, doing an ad hom attack without actually addressing the argument is not the definition of socialism. Anyone can Google socialism. In practice, it has been very different. I can say the same thing about capitalism. Anyone can Google capitalism, but in practice, it's been very different. That's closer. That's closer, Plush. That's right. Socialism is generally speaking when workers own the total means of when workers own the means of production. That's more or less there. We're getting there. We have a corporatocracy. I would say that's kind of accurate. I would say that certainly that's true. But why do we have a corporatocracy? Why? Because it's facilitated, created by, incentivized by capitalism. That's what it is. It is the end game. How did you think we got to a corporatocracy? Or oligarchy, oligopoly? All of these are kind of similar-ish. They have relationships to each other. Giving you everything without needing to work for it. That's not the definition of socialism, buddy. Try again. So if a worker produces a product... they are reimbursed for the identical value of the product they make plus their labor time? No. Ideally, in a socialistic society, you own the means of production, right? So if I make t-shirts, then I'm the one that reaps the benefits of, of my labor. I am the one producing said t-shirt, so I reap the fruit of that labor. I don't have to surrender that for someone who doesn't work for it. You tell me what socialism is? Generally speaking, if you're talking about socialism as a economic concept, socialism says generally... Oh, hello, kitty. Says that the workers are the ones who own the means of production. So, if I'm the one creating... here's an example. If I'm the one that's creating this podcast, right? I own the means of production of this podcast, right? I own the microphone. I own the computer. I own that screen. I own the camera. Yeah, hey, hello, hi. I own the soundboard. I own the soundboard, so technically, I own the means of my production, right? I don't have to look it up. My friends live in Venezuela, and there's socialism there when they're starving. Ah, nice meme. Good meme. Good meme. So I don't have to listen to anybody. Blah 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 blah. Vuvuzela. Blah 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 blah. And of course, if I type in all caps and I scream at people, then I'm right. So yeah, like, do you see how delusional you look right now? You look like you're unhinged, my friend. You look like you're unhinged. And to which owns the means of distribution of the production. Correct. 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 So I'm trying to, like, illustrate what a socialist framework would look like, right? A socialistic framework would say that the workers own the means of production, and generally speaking, the economy revolves around that, right? Because it's one thing to say, like, oh yeah, a worker co-op. Well, although that's good and that is socialistic in nature, that doesn't mean that the entire economy is based around that, right? You don't know what socialism is or what it can do to you. I have no idea what you're talking about. You're just unhinged, going off in an unhinged rant about things you don't understand. But ADT, they have anecdotal evidence from a person that probably doesn't even exist. Anyways, that's enough attention for you, my friend. That's enough attention. If you can't even define or understand what the concepts are, then I don't understand why you would be for or against anything. I don't get it. Anyways, back to our friends, the Proud Boys. The 37-year-old Cuban American says he's struggling to pay bills after credit card companies stopped working with the website 3 years ago to distance themselves from the group. The Southern Poverty Law Center classifies as a hate group that spouts white nationalist images and messages, anti-Muslim and misogynistic rhetoric, and violence. I agree. Ontario shows off bullhorns from his podcast room that have bloodstains from rallies. Cool. Totally. Remember, these are just a bunch of drunk people. It was the destruction of property that got him arrested. He was on camera burning a BLM banner he stole from a DC church, historically black church. He was released from jail after serving nearly 5 months. Ontario explained at NBC that the Proud Boys support the Constitution. Okay. Of course, remember, this is all PR. This is not to be trusted whatsoever. When asked if he believed in freedom of speech, he said yes, which obviously is a lie. He believes in his freedom. He believes in his speech. And when NBC pressed him on how burning the BLM banner contradicts that, he admitted he was wrong. I made a mistake. Yeah, okay. He apologized to the church, but spending 23 hours a day in a cell doesn't seem to have changed his view much, right? Because underneath, these people are all the same. He's a rare Hispanic man in a white nationalist group, a group that he says touts family values. Okay. On his desk is a new pamphlet of aiming at recruiting members. I would say all of us, the Proud Boy members, are not the most intelligent people in the world, and I say that with jest. Yeah, no, he, especially Enrique Tarrio, is quite aware of what he's doing. The group became known as being mentioned by Donald Trump and the presidential debate. A supporter of Trump, Tarrio says he does not support what members of his group are accused of doing during the January 6th riot. Tarrio said he was dealing with legal troubles over the banner burning and in a hotel when the riots broke out. I don't agree or condone with what happened at the Capitol when it comes to violence. We went to Washington, D.C. with the intent of sitting there and supporting the president and then drinking beer after. And obviously I wasn't there. I can't tell you what was in their heads. But I think the mob mentality just took over. If that's the case, see, this is how I know that this is a lie. Because the Proud Boys were at the front lines of this, right? There's numerous reports that the Proud Boys the Proud Boys were at front and center of this riot, of this insurrection. And if that was the case, then this is a lie. Mob mentality could maybe be used as a justification for some of the people in the back, right? Some of the people in the back, but the Proud Boys were there to instigate the whole thing. He says the attack on the Capitol was a step back from the MAGA movement and the Conservative Party, but he plans to move forward with the Proud Boys, of course, because deep down that's what they are. I love them or hate them, the Proud Boys aren't going anywhere. We're here to stay, and I think he means that, quite literally. Tario has faced criminal charges prior to his arrest in D.C. Federal charges when it came out where it came out that he was served as an informant. He wouldn't share any specific future plans, but he is considering getting involved in local politics, of course. Because remember, Steve Bannon said that the best thing that you can do is to get involved in your local politics, which is true. What if Trump wouldn't denounce them so he could use them on the 6th? I don't know. You're giving Trump too much credit. Yeah, so don't believe a word this guy says. This is all a PR stunt in an attempt to curate and rehabilitate or put in a better light the Proud Boys. Okay, don't make no mistake about these people. They are violent. They're a violent criminal gang who has extremist views. Yeah, family values. Like what? Like making sure that people and families have money to survive? Would they be in favor of increasing wages? Would they be in favor of paternity leave, maternity leave? No, of course not, because they're conservative. All right, folks. Media literacy test. Okay? Media literacy test. Coming soon, climate lockdowns. Can anybody start getting the feel? A test on the media? Uh-oh, all I watch is ADT. Yeah, pop quiz, ladies and gentlemen. Pop quiz. Spread it forward. They don't understand any of that concept. Their answer to that is just work harder, fam. Their answer to that, unironically, is just work harder. What was the question? This is a media literacy test, okay? So can anybody tell me how this is going to end up? And who wrote this? Or let me rephrase that. What kind of political positions do you think that this opinion contributor has? Just by reading the headline, can anybody tell me what we're gonna get ourselves into here? I think they will say climate activists are going too far. Yeah, that's on the money. That's right on the money. It's a joke to think that we're going to get people to lock down. Conservatives will cry and mention, yeah. We're going to get more Nazi comparisons. No. Check this out. All right, folks. In the past 2 years have been a checklist for the worst impulses in government and public sentiment. COVID allowed for supposedly temporary measures to morph into 2 years of emergency restrictions. Okay, which emergency restrictions? But what if COVID was the only... This is a slippery slope fallacy incoming, folks. Slippery slope fallacy incoming. But what if COVID was the only opening act, and another proclaimed crisis is the main event, implementing significant but partial restrictions one by one in the name of the common good that can allow for encompassing government control that results in relatively little backlash? Fear over climate change could lead to long-term soft lockdowns, given the precedent of immense growth of government power and significant support for sweeping state actions. Good meme. This isn't a right-wing fever dream. Calls for harsher government measures in the name of saving the environment are already in the parlance of influential organizations and figures. In November 2020, the Red Cross proclaimed that climate change is a bigger threat than COVID and should be confronted with the same urgency. That is a complete pivot because it is true that both of these are crises, but climate change is significantly bigger because it's a global problem. Bill Gates recently demanded drastic measures to prevent climate change, claiming that it will be worse than the pandemic. True. As the climate crisis progresses, we will see that, it will be worse than the pandemic. Despite millions of people having died from COVID, the former governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, said that last year predicted that climate deaths will dwarf those of the pandemic. Maybe that might be, hey, Heat, how's it going? Unless this person is a climate scientist, I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't know about that. But the damage certainly will be worse. Lockdowns, which significantly reduce carbon emissions during the 2020, could be the solution. Actually, we found out that really, it didn't make too much of a difference because it turns out that individual emissions are but a drop in the ocean in comparison to the corporations who make up the majority of the pollution. Lockdowns, which significantly reduced emissions, could be the solution. After all, U.S. Climate Service gloated the first COVID lockdown may have saved 800 lives. Yeah, but it makes no difference if the lockdowns, and remember, other countries had way more restrictions than we did, right? There's countries that are still under certain lockdowns, and yet we have yet to see a significant dent in global emissions. In fact, they have gone up. What would a climate lockdown look like? More likely, cities and states would begin a gradual, discrete ramp-up of restrictions. This is a slippery slope fallacy. During the early days of the pandemic, millions of Americans worked from home. This could be the permanent norm if special carbon taxes are put in place. So what's the problem here? Wait. What's the problem here? Making the people who work from home now have demonstrated in the past 2 years that it is quite capable, that it's quite possible to work from home. I don't understand what the problem is if this becomes a permanent norm. Anyways, such taxes can be imposed on companies. See that word? Taxes. It's made to be, we'll get to it at the bottom. Such taxes could be imposed on companies driving, limited driving or air miles and extend to individual employees. Drive to work to car, you get hit with a tax. Children could be impacted by climate lockdowns too. Schools, especially those heavily influenced by teachers' unions, good meme, could impose permanent online-only days. Delhi, India is already using a version of this concept to crack down on smog pollution. Yeah, because it's really, really bad. Jesus Christ. At the same time, either through direct government fiat or due to ineffective green energy policies, some areas of this, and this is what passes in the mainstream, this is what passes for an article. Some areas of the country could regularly experience California-style rolling blackouts, and as fossil fuels and nuclear power go by the wayside, consumers may be prevented from buying new gasoline cars, lawnmowers, or chainsaws. And the reason why California experiences regular blackouts is because of a private corporation. It's because private corporations have failed to address their infrastructure for the sake of profit. So, private corporations are the problem here. Isn't the military one of the top polluters? I think the military, if you were to separate it as a country by itself, it is more polluting than I think like 48 countries combined or something like that. It's really bad. It's not good. Needless to say, it's very bad. Significant measures are already being planned to combat climate change. California will ban the sale of gasoline cars in 13 years. Oh no. As will Germany. Britain plans to do the same in just 8. Oh no. Pushing innovation to have electric vehicles. Oh no. Prohibiting internal combustion engines could save the planet. The argument goes, no. That's not the argument. That is a gross misrepresentation. It is, we have to reduce, decouple, eliminate wherever we can, as fast as we can. That's the argument. It isn't that, oh, hey guys, tomorrow we just Thanos snapped all the internal combustion engines, the planet is saved. No. Wrong. As each negative weather event is blamed on climate change, because there's significant evidence to suggest that is the truth. All these unprecedented adverse weather events have been linked to climate change. Yes, this is true. We've got plenty of data and modeling to suggest that this is the case. Yeah, that's how science works. Yes. It would be a mid-sized country comparable to Portugal or Denmark. Thank you. So it is. That's massive. While deaths from natural disasters have fallen by 2/3 over the past 5 decades, mostly thanks to technological innovations, elites, insist that climate change is the biggest threat to modern humans have ever faced. True. Climate lockdowns and other restrictions will be framed as saving the people of the US and of the world for themselves. What goal could be more noble? Anyone against such measures could be labeled as a climate denier. So creating climate lockdowns is not going to solve climate change. Just to be clear, no legitimate climate scientist has suggested that all we need to do is have lockdowns and restrictions. Okay. What? I think, dude, are you off? Like, I don't want to be, like, mean, but do you have, like, do you need, like, medication? Are you okay? Like, legitimately, do you need to speak to somebody? You probably should. If you don't speak to somebody, you probably should. Like, I think that, yeah, like therapy, maybe consider speaking to somebody, to speak to a professional, because you're going on like some weird unhinged stuff, and it's not a good look, my friend. I hope that you get the I hope that you find some help or something, or I don't know, dude. You're just going all over the place, my friend. I hope you get help. Anyone against such measures could be labeled as a climate denier. No, you're the one that's presenting this article in the service of climate denial. You are the climate change denial. Who stands against progress or simply a domestic terrorist. What? Defectors are likely won't have much choice anyhow. Facial recognition and plate rate. Oh, Jesus Christ. What like fantastical world has this person like who was somehow allowed to publish in a mainstream media article this nonsense? The government could easily track its locations and automatic tickets, or worse. The ability for officials depend on a significant minority of zealous supporters to enforce measures is invaluable. How many COVID Karens, a good meme, justify their fanaticism by contrasting themselves with uneducated rural Donald Trump supporters. But don't expect the new rules to apply everyone equally. During the pandemic, elites don't wear a mask in private. Only their servers, drivers, and cleaners do. You'll be held responsible for your personal carbon footprint enforced by the law of social convention. But climate evangelists such as Jeff Bezos. Oh, yeah. Oh yeah. Jeff Bezos is known for his knowledge on the climate crisis, and Jeff Bezos is very well known for attempting to solve the climate change problem, despite the fact that his own workers were fired for trying to blow the whistle on the carbon footprint that Amazon has. I'm voting for Trump in 2024. So you like the idea? Do you like? You see, you think like you're living in such a delusional alternate reality that you actually want a person. You simultaneously think that that Venezuela is some like. You simultaneously say that Venezuela is like authoritarian and it's a hellhole and all this other stuff, but you want a guy who doesn't believe in democracy. So how do you square those circles? You simultaneously believe that Venezuela is an authoritarian hellhole, right? And then you want a guy who doesn't believe in democracy. You want a guy who loves authoritarianism. How do you square that circle? Did you ever hear the Ice Age? I have no idea what that has to do with what we're talking about. I wish I knew. Right, every disease. Yeah, you love your freedoms. Really? Then why would you vote for somebody who hates democracy? Why would you vote for somebody who just is against democracy? Why would you vote for somebody like that? You simultaneously love freedoms, but support a system who takes them away. You simultaneously say in one side that you love freedom, but then simultaneously you support systems that actively work against it. It's unbelievable to me. Trump is absolutely against democracy. He doesn't believe in democracy. But climate evangelists such as Jeff Bezos or climate czar John Kerry, yes, known climate scientist John Kerry, who gets up on his soapbox. Listen, buddy. All right, I'm done entertaining this because, like, at this point, I really do think that you need help. So I hope that you go and find some professional help. Like, I'm not even joking. This isn't a joke. This isn't a attack on you. I honestly think you're just making unhinged comments. So I hope that you reconsider that and get some help. That's enough of that. I'm sure he can get some professional help, at least at a price in his free country. Right. In this so much free, in this very free country. Go check out the prices for mental health, and then come back to me. Like, this is what I never understood. If you stand a system, right? If you believe in a system, wouldn't it be reasonable to then say, like, you've actually understood its in and outs, and you understood why you like said system? Because if you stand capitalism, do you really know, like, what it is? Because he simultaneously said he loves freedoms and the Bill of Rights or whatever, so I'm going to assume that he likes democracy, right? Just to be charitable. So then why would he stand a system that actively interferes with that? Why would he stand a person whose only goal is to ingratiate himself? Donald Trump's only goal is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a authoritarian. Why would you stand a person who actively undermines democracy? Some of these folks actually still think they received their Trump tax cuts, so they will believe anything without evidence. Yeah, clearly, based on all these delusional rants that he went on, I think that it's very clear that nothing that we say will convince them. And judging by the fact that they're going off on some random tangents that have no point to them and are completely bouncing around, it's safe to say that this person should probably speak to someone professional. I tell you. Anyways, known climate scientist John Kerry will receive special dispensations for their carbon use. John Kerry, who stands on his soapbox and tells other nations that they're the ones who aren't meeting goals, and that they're the ones that we need to work with, that other countries need to, be serious about tackling the climate crisis. Meanwhile, the United States has done fuck all to really hammer this down. The pandemic proved to be the precedent of 21st century governance. The initial lockdowns were a desperate attempt to understand more about a virus and shut it down. In hindsight, the overreaction will simply provide a backdrop for the next major government overreach. If COVID could kill millions, imagine the powers the government will assume against a threat that could kill billions. Political leaders have learned that fear prompts the public to accept dramatic curtailing of freedoms for vague promises of safety. Which is kind of true. There is truth to that. See the Patriot Act? Sure. They must realize the incredible power at their fingertips. COVID gave the government a mouse a cookie. Of power-hungry officials and bureaucrats can utilize precedents of the past 2 years to institute a much longer, more comprehensive lockdown. Except that didn't really necessarily happen, right? Perhaps in other countries, but like, what was the massive governmental overreach? What was the massive lockdowns that we had that we're still going through? The answer to that is, well, none. And let me pull back the curtain. Kristen Tate is a libertarian writer whose latest book is How Do I Tax Thee? And the curtain has been pulled back. Kristen Tate is a libertarian. This is why nobody takes these people seriously. This is why people don't take libertarianism seriously. Just to be clear, this person is not a climate scientist, so they have absolutely no idea of what they're talking about when it comes to the climate crisis. They just created this whole fantastical world in their head. And created some type of like slippery slope fallacy in their head that because COVID created some type of government overreach, which is like a vague suggestion They didn't really tell us how in specific, other than like, you know, lockdowns, which is not really the case across the board. It wasn't really the case across the board, and we are now seeing the results of that. Of course, James Napper provided that fantastic reporting by the New York Times. Yeah, that was ridiculous. And then the curtain falls. No, this is not a climate scientist. This is just a libertarian. Good memes. But Master Tyranny, true. Latest book. The Liberal Invasion of Red States. And in case we had any doubts, after looking at her profile, look who it suggested for me to follow. Yeah. Good meme. Experts have become the telltale sign of propaganda. What an absolute clown. How does anybody take any of these people seriously? And this is what passes for, this is what gets published by mainstream media outlets like The Hill. This is, for all intents and purposes, this is climate denial. This is designed to make sure that you don't look at what's happening with the climate crisis. That's the whole point of this article. And of course, they try to save themselves by saying the views expressed by the contributors are their own and not the view of The Hill. Well, then why are you? This is on your platform. This is on your platform. 4,401 comments. Does it tell me how many people? 1,184 shares. This is on your platform. Don't tell me that you don't have any type of like support for this. This person has 39,000 followers. This person has 39,000 followers. Yeah, we don't support her. We just want her followers clicking to our webpage, right? Because that generates ad revenue, which is really the goal. Never mind all the climate change now she's spreading. Never mind all the nonsense she's spreading. Her new book is called The Liberal Invasion. She's delusional. Climate change beats big oil and Biden in court. Hey, here's an opinion piece. And it's funny because, like, up front, they'll tell you this is a PhD. In the other article, it didn't say her credentials. At the bottom, Deborah Boston is an environmental scientist and a marine resilience specialist working to bolster science and decision-making involving in the environment, endangered species, and energy development, sea level rise, climate change, and environmental hazards. Huh. Now that is a person who should be speaking about the climate crisis. So this is a lesson in media literacy, folks. Please check who's writing these articles. Always check who's writing. Always check who the author is. Always check what they're about. That's the whole literacy. That's the whole point. That's the whole TLDR, right? Media literacy is so important. Please check who writes the articles, okay? And always check at the front. When you click on opinion pieces, this is not news. While some of these may be facts, this is not news. This is an opinion. Both of these were opinion pieces, not news. And please, whenever you read articles and thinking that you're going to cite these articles, please take 5 seconds to check. Can I just vent this real quick? I'm saying hit that social media created the idea that we need a threshold of millions of followers in order to be relevant, especially shameful to brag about in person. Well, the thing with social media is like it's become so toxic that I don't even know. Like, can we? Well, can we? Oh, it's so toxic. Actually, you know what? Devin Nash has a video that illustrates the point for me. We can play it in a second, but the whole point of me bringing this up, Biden's speech only told the eradication of the head of ISIS in Syria. Okay, well, I mean, that's not... I don't know if we'll have time to get to it, but maybe we will. Deborah Roston is a PhD in environmental science. So all these qualifications, then you can tell that this person shouldn't be talking about climate change because that's their field, right? She's talking about a ruling that basically said that these oil leases that Biden acquiesced to the oil industry was illegal or had to be halted because the government didn't consider the environmental impacts based on new information. They were going off information that was outdated. And therefore, the judge said that they had to hold back. The judicial had to step in because the Biden administration just acquiesced to the oil industry. Just acquiesced, just surrendered because of technicalities that they had to honor their leases and things like that. And they gave it to them. The Biden administration hasn't emerged unscathed. The auction went ahead of November 17th, 5 days after COP26 ended. Remember, this administration loudly pledged to reduce GHG, tackle climate change. Remember John Kerry on his soapbox telling everybody we need to meet these goals while simultaneously allowing these permits to go. But most environmental groups and analysts believe they had other options, including a fresh environmental and scientific analysis. This might have been a good idea, especially as they have to do one now during a campaign stop in February 2020. Biden promised no more drilling on federal lands. Remember that? Even if the administration isn't living up to its promises, the courts are demanding that the government take climate change into account in decisions impacting ecology, ecosystems, and the environment. And Biden is being held accountable by voters. I don't know about that, but I guess she must know. She must have something behind that statement. Big Oil took another beating, but this ruling should be a wake-up call to any industry or company whose activities impact climate change, and not just looking at whether their products are sold in the US, but internationally. Climate change is a reality, and we'll all see increasingly feel the consequences. That reality applies to the companies that will feel the business consequences if they don't take action today. the toxicity was always there, but I'm on about the superficiality of follow amounts. The idea that people are more important and worthwhile due to a number next to their name. It goes against everything that seems too good to be. That seems good to me. True. That's a good point. Yes, it's definitely demoralizing to see absolutely garbage people getting millions of followers. True. This is why I'm not really fussed about appeals to authority, because quite frankly, there are far too many people. Well, they're far too willing to take cues from people who are not experts in the field they claim to be. But if people want to know about politics, why lower yourself to commentators when there are thousands of excellent, well-read, and highly specialized political scientists who can give you better answers? But people like easy answers rather than honest ones, right? Because when it comes to science, especially science, and I think the movie Don't Look Up kind of hit that nail on the head, is that it's not just that simple, right? It's not absolute. It's not yes and no. It's not black and white. That's not how it works. It's deeper than that. It's more demoralizing that people care about follower counts, that society has formed a new hierarchy centered around relativity and follower count. Yeah, it's pretty dystopic. Most drilling is now done on private lands, and a lot of it done is public lands. New Mexico and a lot of purple states that Democrats want, so Biden administration made a calculation to not go hard on this issue. No, I honestly think it's because the oil industry made them acquiesce, in my opinion. It's not the first time that this is being a thing, because at first they had a stance that said they weren't going to do this, and then the oil companies sued, and they just decided to let them go. I'm guessing it's probably because less than 5% of domestic production is done on public lands. I have no idea. I honestly think that at the end of the day, corporate interests have a seat at the table. Period. I'm all for flattening hierarchies within society, not upholding them and adding new ones. Yeah, I mean, but it's like a rehashed version of social hierarchies, right? Social media is just another rerun of what has existed. If you want to know about political polarization or inequality participation, don't turn on Hassan or Ben Shapiro. What? You mean I can't just turn on Hassan, a Twitch streamer, or Ben Shapiro, a partisan hack YouTuber? You mean I can't trust them? Go read many of the books that have been published on it that are really good and really informative. That's not to say watching content on politics is bad, but it should be an accompaniment to other research, not the foundation of your knowledge. True. But I like to hear what I like to hear, and I like to have my biases confirmed. So that's why. Oh man, if everyone thought like you, James Snapper, I think we'd be in a different place. If everyone thought like you, we'd be in a different place, right? Anyways, the whole point of me bringing up those articles back to back is to illustrate the point of media literacy, okay? Please check who's writing these things, okay? Please check who's writing these things. A libertarian who has no idea what climate change is or what it entails, clearly has no credentials whatsoever, has no business talking about the climate crisis, or an actual PhD environmental scientist who specializes in these fields. Greenland Ice Cap lost enough water in 20 years to cover the US. Hey, this is nice. Greenland's immense ice sheet has lost enough ice in the past 20 years to submerge the entire US in a half a meter of water. That's cool. The climate is warming faster in the Arctic than anywhere else on the planet, and melting ice from Greenland is now the main factor of the rise in Earth's oceans, according to NASA. Since measurements began in 2002, the Greenland ice sheet has lost about 4,700 billion tons of ice in Polar Porto, a joint project involving several Danish Arctic research institutes. This represents 4,700 cubic kilometers of melted water, enough to cover the entire U.S. by half a meter, and has contributed to 1.2 centimeters to sea level rise. Jesus. Polar Porting's findings are based on satellite imagery from the U.S.-German GRACE or GRACE program, Gravity Recovery and Climate Experiment, which showed the ice melt to be the most severe near the coast of the Arctic territory at the edge of the ice sheets. In these peripheral zones, the independent observations also indicate that the ice is thinning, that the glacier fronts are retreating in fjords and on land, and that there's a greater degree of melting from the surface of the ice. The west coast of Greenland is particularly affected according to the data. Climate change is particularly alarming in the Arctic, which scientists say is warming at a rate of 3 to 4 times the global average. According to a study published by NASA in late January, the accelerated melting near Greenland's coast can be explained by the warming of the Arctic Ocean. The phenomenon is melting Greenland's glaciers at least as much as warm air is melting them from above. Melting ice from Greenland is currently the main factor in the rise of Earth's oceans, and territories glaciers are now retreating 6 to 7 times faster than were 25 years ago. According to climate scientists, the Greenland ice sheet contains enough water to raise the oceans by more than 7 meters, and the ice sheet in Antarctica contains enough for a rise of almost 50 meters. Yeah. Arctic sea ice cover, although its melting has no effect on sea levels, has also shrunk considerably, losing almost 13% of the average surface area every 10 years. One of the main problems with all of this ice loss and ice caps being melted is that they don't reflect the sun's rays back out, so the planet just continues to get warmer, because that heat that is normally reflected, or those rays that are normally reflected by the ice caps, that's not there anymore. Thank goodness there's 7 times more ocean than land on the planet. That's not good. There's entire islands, including yours, that will be gone should we continue down this path. I mean, not many people have the privilege to have had the education or the time I get to read, so that's not something that can be expected of everyone, but that also means the informative shortcuts people use should be as best as they can be. That's why I try and help point people in the direction as much as I can, rather than trying to convert them to a specific worldview. True. Hawes spouts conspiracy theories that often include anti-Semitic tropes like Hawes, like infrared. Yeah, true. Yeah, so not good, folks. Not good. It seems like every time we get new studies and new data, it points us in the wrong direction. Yeah, like Hawes, honestly, Hawes is another person, like, you should probably, if he's not playing a character, if he isn't playing a character, he should seriously consider speaking or getting professional help. Hey, Pirate Ninja. Because I think he's unhinged. I genuinely think that he's divorced from reality a lot of times, and just not there. Oz, aka Infrared. I just don't understand how, like, Infrared has, like, hundreds of concurrent viewers. I'm not sure who that is. That's perfectly fine. The world is better that way. Trust me. The world is better that way.
This is an ad from a 2008 climate awareness campaign featuring U.S. Senators and nemesis Nancy Pelosi and Newt Gingrich. Pelosi, the current Democratic Speaker of the House, and Gingrich, a former Speaker of the House for Republicans, sat down on a couch in front of the halls of Congress and claimed that although they
don't always see eye to eye,
they did
agree our country must take action to address climate change.
In the midst of the crushing political gridlock of the time, two power brokers of American politics found some consensus on climate change. But this consensus on climate change and environmentalism across the political spectrum isn't new. From Nixon,
we can make 1972 the best year ever for environmental progress,
to Bush,
human activities are changing the atmosphere,
to Clinton.
Global climate change, clearly, is one of the most important of those challenges.
The U.S. has often painted itself as leaders in the quest to address environmental destruction.
I'd like to point out that a lot of these have been since the 70s, 80s, 2000s, and yet none have meaningfully even attempted to legitimately address the climate crisis. And they knew this. The only reason they got out there and did what effectively became like some type of PR stunt is because they acknowledged the reality of it in the first place, right? I mean, why else bother to get on TV and even talk about this?
And yet, despite the impassioned speeches from political figureheads and some consensus across 50 years, the U.S. has few results to show for it. Instead, the U.S. has propped up fossil fuel giants, watered down global climate agreements, and failed to pass any ambitious climate legislation that adequately addresses the scope of the crisis. And today, we are still seeing the same idealization of American climate leadership with the Biden administration.
Well, the United States is not only back at the table, but hopefully leading by the power of our example.
But of course, the country's historic and current actions tell a different story. Here's why the US never was and never will be a climate leader. This video was made possible by the people who support me on Patreon. Get early access to all my videos by becoming an OCC Patreon supporter. After 4 years of outright denial and war on climate action during the Trump presidency, some hoped that Biden's inauguration might provide at least some much-needed relief and momentum for the climate justice movement. But for anyone paying attention to the federal government's track record on climate change over the last 34 years since climate scientist James Hansen laid out the threat we face in the halls of the Capitol building, they might have realized that there is very little chance of Biden sharply cutting emissions by 57% by 2030. The only emissions path the US can take if it is to do its part in staying within 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming. That's because ever since the Industrial Revolution, the United States has been the king of fossil fuel emissions. But it wasn't until the
That's right.
1970s that governing bodies really started to do anything about climate change. Under the Nixon administration, the Environmental Protection Agency and a slew of environmental protection acts were quickly established to crack down on flagrant pollution. But unfortunately, that momentum was quickly lost under the neoliberal backlash of the Reagan era. The EPA was stripped of its authority and defunded, and polluters were left unenforced under the banner of deregulation. It wasn't until the Clinton administration, under strong recommendations by climate scientists, that the White House committed the country to lowering greenhouse gas emissions to 1990s levels by 2000. Just a quick look at the numbers reveals how deeply Clinton's initiative failed. Again and again, Congress and the White House have attempted to pass climate legislation, from the 2003 Cap-and-Trade Climate Stewardship Act to the American Clean Energy Leadership Act of 2009. And most every time, they've been stuffed or watered down to the point of ineffectiveness. And now, in 2022, almost 2 years into Biden's presidency, there's still little to show in terms of US climate action. Again and again, Biden has called for urgent climate action.
Put climate change at the center of our domestic, national security, and foreign policy.
He is certainly taking more steps than his predecessor, but his administration seems to be talking the climate talk a lot more than walking the climate action walk. If Biden wanted to, there are a lot of executive actions his office could take right now that would quickly signal an end to fossil fuels. Biden has the power to halt new oil pipeline projects, end all fossil fuel leases on federal lands, and reinstate the crude oil export ban. In short, the White House can hamstring the fossil fuel industry right now and at least set the US on the path towards rapid emissions reductions. But Biden seems reluctant to take those actions. That's because America is still beholden to the profits of fossil fuel giants like ExxonMobil. As the director of the Energy Justice Program, Jean Su, notes in an article from the New Republic, the supposed leader of the free world is still an oil and gas president. Executive actions like Biden's new light bulb efficiency standards just nibble at the edges of a much larger problem. the fossil fuel industry. Indeed, these kinds of small wins, while important, distract from the crucial work of ending fossil fuel emissions. America will never fully decarbonize by switching to efficient light bulbs. Only a complete dismantling of our fossil fuel infrastructure will achieve that. Outside the White House, Republican and Democrat stonewalling has made that pretty much impossible. The Democrats' big-ticket climate bill is treading water and is being made even less ambitious as Democrats like Joe Manchin, who one ExxonMobil lobbyist called the kingmaker of their stalling operations, hollow out the bill to the point of ineffectiveness. And partisan compromise has led to the watered-down, recently passed infrastructure package, which focuses much more on car-oriented infrastructure than public transportation and low-carbon transportation options. This complete inability to pass any sort of climate legislation at a scale commensurate to the crisis we face is due in part to decades of fossil fuel-funded climate misinformation and heaps of oil money filling the pockets of American politicians across the political spectrum. Fossil fuel capitalism has brought prosperity to those in power, so they have a vested interest to do the bare minimum when it comes to emissions reductions. Not only has the US failed to become a climate leader within its borders, it now exports its failures across the world, all while claiming to be its savior. The self-identified leader of the free world is doing anything but leading when it comes to global climate actions. From propping up neoliberal regimes that hamstring public safety nets and climate resiliency programs, to destabilizing whole countries through decades of war, the United States has been a formidable obstacle to climate justice. And on the climate diplomacy side, with each conference of parties, also known as COP, the United States, along with its fellow countries in the imperial core, refuse to acknowledge the emissions and climate debt they owe to the imperial periphery. From COP15 in Copenhagen that fell apart when the US refused to accept Bolivia's and other global south countries' cries for climate reparations, to the most recent COP26 talks where one anonymous negotiator characterized the US stance on funding climate loss and damage in the imperial periphery as a quote-unquote immovable object, the US has been a constant thorn in the sides of countries like Bolivia and Tuvalu, who've demanded that rich countries like the US repay the emissions debt they've accumulated over the last 3 centuries. In addition, it's hard for the US to be a climate leader when it continues not to act. From flip-flopping back and forth on the Paris Agreement depending on who sits in the Oval Office, to its continued failure to pass comprehensive climate legislation, the US's urging of other countries, especially countries in the periphery that the US has plundered for centuries, to reject fossil fuels and embrace renewables is a bit hypocritical. As Eric Levitz puts it in an article for Intelligencer, if rich countries do not treat warming as a serious issue, they cannot expect poor ones to do so either. The US only represents 13% of global carbon dioxide emissions. Its failure to act doesn't spell the end, and that gives me hope. The world can and should move on without us to address climate change. If the ruling class politicians lining the halls of Congress and the White House have their way, it seems that the US will continue to fail on climate action, which means that we need to work towards 2 movements. First, an anti-imperialist, anti-fossil fuel, anti-capitalist climate revolution must seize the US. This means implementing strong agrarian, transportation, healthcare, and economic measures that foreground climate action, the end to all systems of oppression, and the well-being of people living both inside and...
Yeah, so basically the takeaway from here is exactly what I was saying. You can't have our climate czar pretend to care about the climate crisis, telling other countries what to do, without us even taking a step forward. A meaningful step forward, I should say.
Outside the borders of the United States. These domestic actions must be coupled with a funneling of the massive profits that have been gained through centuries of plunder of the global south back into their hands as a form of climate reparations. But while we in the US build the power necessary to make that happen, the second movement must also take root. A parallel leftist climate revolution in peripheral countries. In all likelihood, a climate revolution will happen first in the imperial periphery and spread into the core. So it's countries like Bolivia, like even the communist regions of the Philippines, that are the true climate vanguards. Those of us in the imperial core need to do all we can to bring about the end of imperial power. But we also need to look to our comrades in the imperial periphery for leadership if we are to liberate both ourselves and the planet from destruction.
Unfortunately, videos like these, while very important, do terribly with the YouTube algorithm and sponsors don't want to touch them. But there is a way you can help, becoming revenue too. Patreon supporters are the financial
All right. So TLDR, I think that we can get pretty much everything that we need from this, in the sense that it is true. Until we take into consideration ecological damage to the environment, damage to the climate, to the planet, which eventually, and whether we like it or not, will affect all of us. Until we can put that into the equation, we will continue to see the path of destruction that we're on. It prioritizes private interest. Primarily naturally and climate efforts work around them, not the other way around, sadly. True. We'll never meet the goal unless we put these fuckers secondary. Correct. And it's like these industries are dying industries anyways. The only reason they're still propped up is because the government props them up. It's because the government props them up because it's a circle, right? These large fossil fuel titans by government. The government then continues to foster them, and they continue to foster the government. It's like a loop. And that's correct. It's unsustainable. It is not sustainable. If they undermine COVID to keep their industries running, climate change will be nothing. Yeah, they don't care. If they can... I mean, we saw that with... we saw like a glimpse, like a blink, a small window into how these companies treat very real problems when it comes to the climate crisis. We saw what happened when... we saw what happened with that Amazon warehouse and that candle shop factory, I think. It was a candle maker factory. When there was imminent catastrophic weather that was imminent, they still made their workers work for to keep their facilities running for this perceived notion of profit. I mean, climate change is still in the abstract for public, COVID is not immediate, and somehow there's still efforts to downplay it to keep their bottom line in check. Yeah, that's the problem, right? That's the problem. When you don't take into consideration the ecological destruction that these companies are very, very aware that they're doing, it's a recipe for disaster, especially when a lot of governmental officials have been lobbied to all hell by these private corporations. I mean, I have no hope because we have a tangible example of still no real effort made to fight a serious and immediate threat, not to mention climate change, so I'm a sad panda. Yeah, but, I mean, we don't have a choice, right? We don't have a choice. Hey, Rag, have you seen the movie Don't Look Up? Have you seen the movie Don't Look Up? What did the scientists do? Up until the very last moment, what did the scientists do? They kept trying to warn people all the way until the end. They kept trying. They kept trying to get that information out there. They kept trying to talk to people. They kept trying to get out to the media. They kept trying to reach out to governmental officials, even though they were woefully incompetent, clearly captured by private interests. But they did it till the end. They did it until they couldn't no more. That's the takeaway from that. We gotta keep doing it. We gotta keep fighting. And this is what scientists do all the time, since forever nobody listens or downplays it and finds an opportunity to further their career projects. Yeah, that's true. And it can be incredibly demoralizing, but gotta keep going. Gotta keep going. Do whatever it is in your purview, right? Whatever it is in your purview that you can do it. Have you considered participating in events in your area that restore the local ecology? Sometimes that may be a thing. Is there a way to organize your local community? Maybe behind a community garden? Is there ways that you can reach out to people I don't know. Everyone has something that they can do. Locally won't do much if our industry doesn't change. I agree, but you got to try and you got to do what you can within the tools that you have, within the time that you have, right? Otherwise, sinking into doomerism it's going to breed apathy, right? Because if you fall into the mindset that there's just nothing you can do and you kind of check out, then it really is kind of beyond effed. That's fine. I don't tell people not to try. I just don't believe we're going to make it. That's maybe true. But that doesn't mean we don't try. As long as there's still time on the clock, we have to try. Marianne Williamson had a good take on today, like the suffragettes and the civil rights fighters before us. Sometimes we just got to fight not knowing if we'll accomplish our mission. Yeah, exactly. Like, the whole point is that as long as there's still time, and as long as there's still avenues that we can take, as long as there's still things that we can do, and as long as there's still time on the clock, then we should be moving to do whatever it is possible. I'm just jaded, and there's very, very good reasons to be jaded about it. We have a incompetent administration. We have an incompetent administration who is claiming to care but has done nothing. We have consistently failed to meet any of our metrics across the board. But that doesn't mean we can't still continue to push. I mean, globally as humankind, not just the US. Yeah, well, I understand. Certainly there's plenty of reasons to be in this kind of mindset, but the moment you check out, then it's all really effed. That's my point. The moment we all check out for real is when we're all seriously effed. The moment we check out is when it's over. Folks, just a quick recap. Just a quick recap on what we talked about today. I'm not telling people to check out. I just personally lost faith in that it's going to happen until I see all the fossil fuel industries decimated. We may never even see that. I don't know. But certainly continuing to bring up this is what we need to be doing. So to recap, today we talked about Florida proposing an election police force that has no business, no basis on for being necessary, a waste of money, authoritarian, continuing to prove the point that Ron DeSantis just wants to consolidate power. We went over the importance of media literacy. We went over an opinion piece by a libertarian who has no idea what they're talking about when it comes to climate versus a PhD with somebody who is actually in that field. The takeaway from that is please check your sources. When you post something online or when you read an article, just make sure that you check who writes this article. Make sure you check their biases and where they're coming from so that you understand and dissect what you're reading. We also went over the Proud Boys attempting to do some PR. The takeaway from that is don't forget who they are. We also talked about the Greenland Ice Caps and how quickly climate change is decimating the ice caps and shelves that are precious to the environment, especially when it comes to sea level rise, and especially the top caps that reflect sunlight, which creates feedback loops, which only worsen global warming. Yeah. Also, I didn't talk about this one. I didn't go over this article, but it looks like a lot of saber rattling is going around. Personally, I'm not good with foreign policy, and I tend to avoid foreign policy because I'm just not versed in it. But I did see, and I put a article in the Discord about actual U.S. troops being deployed to Eastern Europe, which is unnerving because the last thing we need to do is attempt to coerce or instigate a war. That's literally it. I live in Poland. They're deployed 12 miles from me. Jesus Christ. I like the summary. Very nice. Yeah, I'm just making sure we're getting everybody caught up. Yikes. And it's very concerning, and it should be. The last thing that we need to do is be involved in another war. That's my that's my personal foreign policy, is to avoid war and to avoid war by any means necessary as much as humanly possible. So yeah, it's more of a symbolic deployment to show that the US is serious about NATO commitments without pissing off Putin. But like, I don't think that we need to saber rattle and cause a situation that could be avoidable. I live near the anti-missile base. That's not even finished, really? Jesus. Yeah, even the president of Ukraine told the US to calm the fuck down. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want this to become an unnecessary conflict, which we all know has never been historically good. So I agree. They even pulled out their diplomatic stuff from Ukraine prematurely at everyone's surprise. Yeah, like, it just seems very saber-rattly. It seems hawkish. It seems not good. It seems like the opposite of what we should be doing. That doesn't mean that what Russia's doing is good, okay? That doesn't mean what Russia's doing is good. I'm saying that we should be doing everything possible to avoid this, okay? But war, true. What is it good for? Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, right? Is that how the song goes? In Germany, we have American nukes. Yikes. I'm pretty sure that's how the song goes. Anyway, folks, unfortunately, that is all the time I have today. Oh, we actually have a couple of more minutes. Let me see. Germany is involved in the Nord 2 stream to fuck with Russia. Is that the gas pipeline thing? Yeah, I think that's pretty much all the important news. Massive winter storms are apparently another bomb cyclone just hit. So, folks in the Northeast, please take care. Okay, the gas pipeline, gotcha. We also have the relay station that sends drone signals from America to Pakistan so drones can kill people. Yikes. Yikes. Yeah, snowstorms aren't a joke. Correct. So please take care out there, folks. We got a half an inch in snow. We got a half inch in South New Mexico. Wow. Jeez. Texas isn't even sure their grid can hold it. I mean, yeah, well, that's because Texas is very unique, and you can blame private companies for that. Yeah, you can blame private companies. Don't you just love freedom? I know it is, but holy shit, they just had a huge, massive fuck up and no lessons taken. Well, have you seen the profits? As long as those aren't damaged, I don't care. There's no reason. Why would the government be involved? Very good, very free system. Very good, very good, very good. I don't know, I hope people don't die, and I keep an eye... And I'll keep laughing at Texas. That's not but a perfectly tech cruise reminding Texans to book their trips to Cancun early. Or, and here's like a thought, maybe private corporations shouldn't be in charge of whether or not you have heating. Yeah. Alright folks, unfortunately that is all the time I have today. I do have to start getting ready for work. I appreciate you guys hanging out here. Thank you, Spread It Forward. Thank you, Heat. I appreciate all the new follows. Jared Cardenas, Nicodemus, Plush. 1993. Is that like Plush, like the album? I don't know. Either way, nice. I like that. I appreciate you guys hanging out here. If you guys enjoyed the content, don't forget to hit the follow button. It does... yes, that's right. Leaving his dog behind. It does help us out, and you get 5 free emotes. Don't forget to join the Discord to keep up with the channel for any updates. And do us a quick favor. Head on over to the YouTube channel. It takes 5 seconds. Hit the big red subscribe button. It really does help us out. Like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that awesome stuff. And don't forget to spread the word far and wide that this is the chillest place to be for news and politics. Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And join us for Saturday Catterdays at about noon Eastern Time. So make sure you join the Discord to keep up with any updates. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on the YouTube and spread the word far and wide. I appreciate you guys. You guys are what makes this channel grow. As always, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love y'all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. See ya! Hang tight, folks. Thanks for the stream. Take care. You take care. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Well, this is a nice surprise. I haven't been able to raid Ben in quite some time, so let's go show her some love. All right, let's go show Bleep Blop Ben some love and support everybody. Hang tight. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. See ya.